Ladies and gentlemen, the short story masterpiece that Algren titled The Lightless Room was recently discovered among his papers. It has never appeared before in print or been performed. We present The Lightless Room here as our last reading.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Associated Press. Coroner's physician Ed Biddison disclosed today that the death of Frank Blackie Kavanaugh, Chicago welterweight pugilist, was caused by cerebral hemorrhage sustained when he was knocked out in the third round of a scheduled 8-round preliminary with Benny Speciale of this city at Sportsman's Arena Saturday night.
We was always supposed to get married right from the start, but I don't think we ever would have ever, even if this hadn't happened. Now that he's gone, I can say it better. Blackie never meant a thing he said. He lied to me more often than not. I would have married him any time, he would have. Just give me the word so I can go home again and hold up my head to Pa like a Christian and say I was now lawfully wed. But it would have had to have been at St. Columbanus to please Pa with Father Ryan officiating. And Father Ryan wouldn't even confess Blackie no more, far less marry him to a really church-going girl like me. Father Ryan always thought so highly of me. So no matter how you figure it, it couldn't hardly ever have been, because Blackie just wasn't the kind to change his ways for a woman. He'd had so many of them. Even after me and him started going together so steady that folks would hint around to find out if we was married secret, he'd still brag up other women about the places he took them he couldn't be seen in with me. And what he done with them, just as easy as with me every time. Once when we was first going together, Blackie knocked out a nigger and Judge Costello come down into the locker room and give him $10 for training expenses and called him the White Hope of the White City. The next afternoon at 3 o'clock sharp, I met him in front of the woodlawn. He kissed me that time and said we would now be lawfully wed. And on the way to the L, we stopped in at John O'Connor's. I couldn't any more stop him from drinking than I could have from fighting when he was mad. The drink was in him, like the fighting, and not me, nor him, nor his fathers and brothers, nor Father Ryan himself could put any sort of stop to either one. I begged O'Connor he should give Blackie no more, that was the day that we was to be lawfully wed, but all O'Connor done was quit selling to me, saying I was more drunk than Blackie. That may well have been, I have been known to overdo it, the middle of the week, and this was the middle of the week. But I knew better what it was I wanted, drunk or sober, than Blackie ever did. It was him shouldn't have been having the gins that time and not me. And when it got so late, I knew full well we would never make City Hall that day, and it might be 6 months or a year, or never before we ever had another 10 spot between us again. I slapped him hard in the dark of the booth and walked out praying Mary he wouldn't let me go. At the corner, I let him catch up, holding a half-empty beer glass and his shirt tails out.
I'm a fool for mistreating a good woman.
And that black curly hair was in his eyes till I could have kissed him right there in the public street.
We'll be wed by Judge Costello himself this very night.
Then he threw the beer in my eyes and shoved me flat against a store glass like forcing a man under the ropes. I heard the glass begin breaking above me, but he was too weak from the drink to shove me through. I shoved him off and ran with him kicking me from behind. That's a shameful thing for a woman to have to remember, any woman. 2 blocks I ran, down 63rd, till there was no breath left in me, and people just making room instead of stopping him. Men passing and 1 or 2 laughing even. And myself not well able to see anymore where I was running for the beer burning my eyes and being that heartbroken. And that's how he would do. Pretend he was crazy about me till he got me believing it all over again, and then right off, act like an infidel, like he hated me, something terrible. And which was how he really felt, I never did learn. And I doubt Frankie knew himself. But those ones who laughed on the street that time, Lord, how I ever held my head up in that Sunday Mass, I can't say to this hour. I really hope you don't mind my saying Frankie was no good. Just between you and me and Father Ryan, of course, he didn't care one way or another, whether he lived or died. And I do forgive him in my heart. Unless he's just bad hurt and gets better or so paralyzed drunk again they can't tell he's not dead.
I couldn't tell you if Blackie was a contender or a bum. Could never find out myself. It's about killed me trying to. He'd never showed me what he really had. He was forever holding something out on me. Right up to last Saturday night. It does seem, though, that it almost had to be Blackie if it was anyone. The way he was squawking that he was always going to quit on me just as soon as he could get on cash relief. That was how he really felt. He was the only one of the boys around Coolans who seemed to know he wasn't going nowheres. Well, he was right. I can see now. But it wasn't so certain then. It does make me feel low thinking how I won't ever see him yank off a tablecloth in O'Connor's. Beers and all onto the floor again, and then call Connor an underfed sheneen. He'd get himself and everybody with him thrown out of some place and then back in and argue till they tossed him out again.
I like that. Give me some more of that, O'Connor, you filth.
That's what he'd say as soon as he caught his wind on the sidewalk, and he'd come out flying again and keep it up till O'Connor either closed the place or called the squad. I won't pass no tavern no more and hear him shouting around inside for the biggest shot on 63rd Street, even if he was ordering it somewheres in Blue Island or Gary. Well, maybe we brought him along too fast. Maybe he was overmatched. His feet wouldn't follow his punches, though, ever. Though he was fast enough when he was right. If he'd been right a little more often. If he'd have lived right, even 3 days of the week before a fight, say, this never would have happened. It only happened because deep inside him, he wanted it to. I had that feeling I'd been holding out the whole time. Looking down at his casket in an open grave with 5 shots of good whiskey inside of me, I tossed the empty bottle in against the edge of the casket and bust it. And all at once, it just seemed to me that this was a new way Blackie had thought up of holding back on me. If I'd had one more and the casket would have still been open, I would have bust the bottle against his stubborn head. It's 4 days now since the wake, and I can't seem to care about things I gotta do. One way or the other, any more than he ever did. If I'd never crossed the street that night after he lost to Bruno Maleska to talk to the tramp, I'd be sitting on top of the world this minute, instead of where I am.
When an Irishman is bad, he's very bad. He's simply no good at all. The boys are all fine boys. I've been a sober, hard-working man all my days. Frank was our first, the only one born in the old world, and the only one to turn out bad. Simply no good at all.
Of all the money that lad made it gambling and fighting, even stealing for all I might have known, and setting such an example to his younger brothers as more than once made me wish him out of the house to stay. He never so much as once brought $1 home, or bought his mother so much as a flimsy house dress. All he ever brought me home was that nightcat Marge of his, to sleep with him in the roomer's bed after the roomer had went off to work, and leave me to make their sheets up afters. Back they'd go to their boozing and helling and whoring back of White City soon, as ever the streets were darkening and the little lights coming on. So 'tis just as well, I say, for he was the sort of lad who'd strike his own mother once the will took him. And I say Father Ryan was right in washing his hands of the lad. His own father and brothers was right in throwing him out when his breath smelt of the drink, and the lad would best have died in his cradle in Cork. And I'm a churchwoman in good standing that's saying this. I thank the Virgin not one of his brothers are fighters and gamblers. They're good boys, every one. And it was Mary's bless and nothing less that made him the one to go. I thank the Savior he'll not be bringing home that little simpering thing to sleep with him in the roomer's bed, be leaving the sheets for me to make up afters, and then to have her crossing herself like a nun and saying a novena at my own table. Soon as ever, it's getting dark in the streets again.
I was fit that night. Hadn't had me a drop all day, nor a woman all week. Feeling good too I was, and knowing I could win and wade myself in, feeling high as any lark. It weren't till the night, and the great lights coming on in the streets, and the little sign lights in between, beginning their flickering off and on, and everything else getting dark again, like the only way I remember Cork, as though nothing might ever be light again. Then I sat alone in the hotel room, recalling what a fool I'd been all my days, and what foolish things I'm still after doing. The foolish women always in my way, the foolish drink and all the while the great night coming in on the other side of the little window, and the foolish way I've wasted my strength on those streets. What small difference could it make after all then, I asked myself. Did myself or this Italian lad win tonight? I asked it out loud, because there, so alone by myself, and it seemed in that moment there was no other human voice in that whole great hotel, nor anything quite human on the street below, nor in that whole great city. And how my own mother no longer cared in her heart as she used to when I was a child in Cork and her only one. Did I die on the street this very night? And the whole great city I'd never been in before, and nobody in it any longer knowing or caring. And my own manager, for all I could tell, betting my own money against me and me no certain way of finding him out for sure. I looked then once at myself in the cracked dresser mirror, and even to myself then, I saw I looked like a ragged stranger. The unclean kind you send his ways before he finishes his whimpering just for the very foul look of him. And none of them, not even Saul Singer, knowing the sort of thing I wanted the whole time, and myself with no real way of showing them at all. It was the sort of place I wanted, all my own, mind you, a kind of room I must have been inside of one time or another far back, a very small sort of room it must have been, and I a very small sort of child. For I first recall wishing to be back within it with Mother when we were back in Cork. A small room, surely, quiet in there and warm, and no small sign lights going on and off in the street below, and no way of getting dark in there as though nothing at all could be light again. Surely, it was only for the wanting of such a place that I loved the drink instead. It would take 4 good preliminaries in New York, so I would say, and me in the best shape of my career, to pay the rent of a month of such a place, as often as I told him I wanted, the best way I could tell him. And how it was all he could do to keep getting me on once or twice a month at White City. Had he just not brought me along that fast, had just not been for the drink and the holy talking Marge, perhaps then I might have well gotten those New York fights and even won them too. Then I would have set up in contracting with the old man. I should have clean forgot the drink. I should have sat with my feet on the desk like Judge Costello himself, and never be after getting my mouth bust open of a Monday night off some Chicago Avenue Pollock for $12 in expenses, just because a crowd likes to see an Irishman take it. I would have gotten myself married to some quiet sort from around St. Columbanos. But no one like that holy Marge. How is a man supposed to respect a woman he has his own way with all the time? Any night of the week. Every night he has nothing to do and time on his hands in the park or in the fun house at Riverview or at Danceland where they dim the lights. I had my way with Marge the first night I ever seen her. Up at Mary Gardens it was. And many's the night since I've wished I'd not gone dancing that night. The very righteous way she'd carry on about getting married and all. And when all I wanted was peace and quiet and some little way of living. Of getting along from day to day without getting my puss bust in of Monday. But she cared for nothing, nothing at all. Save the gossiping tongue of that Father Ryan. Pa was the first started saying I wouldn't ever be nothing but a pool room pug because of the drink. That everybody should try to be a champ of whatever line he was in. And he never would stop to figure out how maybe I loved the drink only after I grew to know. Speciale wasn't tough. He wasn't even a little tough. He was strong. He was strong in both hands, but no way so strong as myself. It was the smart lads who beat me. The strong ones with nothing but strong in their hands were the very ones I fought best. I could be mean with the foulest of them and cared more for fighting the ill-tempered, low-hitting lads than I ever did for the easy-natured, cleaner ones. I liked this Speciale. just for the low, surly look of him. He hit me with an overhand right when I came out, cut me square on the side of the jaw with everything in the house behind it, and I shook it off before he got himself set again from the force of his own great blow. I snapped his head back with a short left, not to hurt him, but just to show him he couldn't be hurt myself. He must have struck me 12, 15 times with that overhand right, me stopping a few in the air with elbows, McFadden's old trick, and then just letting him come in. That gave me the chance to hit him and show him I cared not at all for the strength he had in his hands. That made him a little wild the rest of the round. That's how those Italians are, and the Blackamoors as well. They get a little mixed in their minds, they're scared a little, and they no longer hit so sharp. They start throwing all they have. That's why they burn out so fast. 'Tis the Jew fighters that keep their heads. It's when they're losing that they fight better and better. But to do it, he has to first lose the first 4 rounds or get himself knocked down once or twice. Then he gets up so very calm and begins once in a while to swing. But he never swings once till he's counted it first. He never pulls that trigger, as they say, till he sees it's likely to ring the jackpot. And so it is with a fighter like that. He has his fight hopelessly lost, and as yet he's hardly swung his hands. Then of a sudden he does, and the fight is all over right then. I never felt so calm in my life as after that first round when the crowd thought I was hurt. I wasn't, and Sol knew I wasn't, and Speciale knew I wasn't too. I wasn't near so tired as him, sitting across from him with my head thrown back listening at him, giving me the line about roughing him against the ropes and getting the old thumb in the eye and the heel of the glove across his teeth coming out of the clinch. I opened my eyes at the warning buzzer and stood up too soon, just to show how fresh I was, and Sol took off the stool, and I looked straight up to get the bends out of my neck, and way up there in the rafters, up there in the great dark, with but one small light shining on it and small flags flying about it, a sign said, "Park as long as you like and a lot of your own." And all the little flags waved a little, like there was a breeze up there you couldn't even feel down where me and Speciale was. Then the lights were shining on hot on my back, and Speciale was throwing that overhead right, mixing low lefts at my short ribs, and I knocked him down with one I slung from the 4th row flush into his gut. When he got up, I knocked him down with 2 straight lefts into his teeth. He spat out his mouthpiece at 6. His front teeth was come too loose to gulp it well, and he came up at 9. The boo-boo birds in the back of the park, the iron-throated lads, began yelling, I should finish him while I was able. I could not. He was too fast to find, and 'tis still too strong. He went into his shell and stayed there, and I threw what I had, but it wasn't enough. Beside, I wanted to get back to the corner to take another look at the sign, with the little light on it and the small, cool breeze going past. It had to do with the thing I always wanted. I needed to see it once more. Sol squatted before me then, working my legs, and so not seeing where my eyes were. Park as long as you like, and a lot of your own. I had never thought of it that way before. And surely it was the very thing I'd been wanting all my days and yet not knowing. Peace and quiet and a place all my own where I could just lay on my back all the day doing nothing just so long as I liked. And not a scold and holy voice anywhere near. More than having a system on the dice or the horses or being married to a woman not named Marge.
What's eating on you?
Sol looks up worried like, but not slowing his rubbing.
What are you holding out on me for when this fellow's out on his feet? I don't know what it is you're dreaming of, Blackie, but it's unfair to myself.
And he starts in a telling the many fine things he's soon to do for me. Him and myself are going to take in a few nightclubs this very night if I just finish the boy in the next round. But even going out on a binge sounded sort of fake to me then. I had no heart left in me at all, not even for the drink.
You act like you're scared. The wobblier he gets, the scareder you look. Are you sick, Blackie? Are you drunk?
And he had the impudence then to smell my breath. Then he looked pretty scared himself. But I just looked straight up at them rafters, at that cool small breeze stirring at them little flags, and just said with my lips like I used to in Cork when I was a tot, and so Saul couldn't hear, "Yes, I'm so scared, I'm sick, but I like it that way." Then I crossed myself for the first time since Father Ryan forbade me the church, and went out under the lights laughing to myself. And Speciale hit me with a hand like a house brick clean between the eyes. I could hear them yelling. I could feel them standing up in the rows out there in the dark. They was all far away and going farther, and I knew I could shake it off like any other time, only I didn't for that high wind that seemed closer. I liked it, that feeling. It was like the boo-boo birds was going far away for the last time. Like this time, they was never coming back at all. And I was happy to feel them going. And then I seen myself just as plain. Like I was one of the boys, way up in the bleachers myself, looking through opera glasses. I was down there, under the great lights, in pants with a shamrock on one corner, leaning all my weight on Speciale to make him shove me off, and my pants hanging too low and my head wobbling blow-like side to side, and my hands too low ever to get them up in time again. Then all the sounds came back like a great wave. I felt clear just one moment, with everything right up close as never before. The great lights swelled up all over the whole house, till the place was filled with one big white hot light shining straight down through my eyes. So even them being closed didn't keep out the whiteness and the burning. Then some good fellow pulled the switch. I heard him pull it, far back in my head. And all the lights everywhere in the world began going out one by one till there wasn't but one little flickering one, for all the world like a vigil light, right over the ring. No sound, not a whisper even. Nobody around at all. And nothing to do save to keep watching that one small flickering thing. But I let the big cool wind come down and blow it out like a puff. Then it was just me and the big cool dark, and no wind near at all, as still, as small and safe and warm as the place where I laid as a small sick child.